Joining us now, of course, he's been the head coach at BYU since 2003. He's been with the program longer than that. Part of a tremendous run over there in Provo and dominance. They're coming off a 38-17 season, making it to the regional final in Tempe, winning a 12 straight conference title, including a 7 straight West Coast Conference Championship. I speak of Gordon Eakin, who joins us now here on In the Circle. Coach, how you doing?
Doing good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm curious. I just read off last season, an amazing year, getting to a regional final, winning a conference championship with all the obstacles that everybody had to deal with. Have you had a chance to reflect on last season and what you were able to accomplish?
A little bit. There's if you want to stay relevant, there's not a lot of time to reflect. It's mostly moving forward day to day, but I've taken a little bit of time to think about the season and about what we can do better primarily, and then of the awesome contributions of our players, because that's really what it's all about.
What are some of the things you'll take from last season that you'll remember and then use to moving forward with this new team coming up when you start practice and get set for the 2022 season?
Well, again, I spent a lot of time reflecting on what we could do better, and I think the things that we could do better is primarily for me not to get thrown out in the last game of the regional would be a good place to start. Maybe vent my frustrations, but leave it at that and stay in the game. That would be on top of the list. And then I think the more I've coached, the more I understand the value of team culture and team chemistry and how important that is to championship teams. And so each year I look at our team culture and our team chemistry and what we can do to improve it, and never leave that on the players, because it's really leadership and coaches that set the tone. So we're working hard to make sure our team culture and our team chemistry matches our ability so that we can get through those tough times and bounce back or be resilient through those tough times.
A lot of people in the country watched your game against Arizona State when you beat Arizona State to get to that regional final. It was a wild game. And I remember you said, hey, we were battle tested because you play a tough non-conference schedule. You've played them before. You've been there before. But because of the coverage, did you sense that a lot of people, have you got any feedback in the offseason? Hey, I watched your program, play in Tempe and beat Arizona State in an exciting game on national television. Did you get any of that feedback either at the time or even here in the offseason?
Both. Certainly the night of the game, I got texts from people I don't even know who they are. And I mean, just a lot of outpouring of great job. It's fun to watch you guys play. And then ongoing from that time, I always get people saying, hey, we watched that game and that was a fun game to watch, because it really was. It was a fun game to be a part of, but I think that's because we came out on top. Thinking about the game during the game, it was very emotional. But I would imagine from a viewer standpoint, it was a very fun game to watch. So yeah, we've got a lot of positivity that has come from that ASU game.
Where does that game rank as far as games you've coached? I mean, it was such a seesaw affair, such a wild game back and forth. Like, people stayed up to watch it. Obviously, as we'll talk about a little bit later on, 2010, you had a pretty significant wins in Austin Regional. But where does that win against Arizona State, considering it's national TV, the way the game played out, where does that rank for the program and in your career as far as games you've been a part of?
Well, it was certainly a highlight for sure. That 2010 run where we went to Austin and beat Texas on their own field. They were ranked 7th in the country at the time. And then we beat East Carolina to move on to the Super Regional. That was very special. But beating a quality ASU team on their own field in a regional was certainly right up there with all the great wins that we've had.
I remember last season, a lot of people started taking notice about your team when you beat Baylor during the regular season. Was that a turning point for your team during the season where you thought, hey, this team could do some damage here in the postseason? We can make a run at this.
Yeah, for sure. It was a turning point. And mainly it was a turning point because we had played a very rigorous and tough schedule all on the road. and many in the ballparks of the opponents that we were playing, not neutral sites. And so it was the first time we got the chance to play at home against a very good Baylor team, and we played very well. And it just kind of solidified in all of our minds, especially the players, that yeah, we can compete, and we can compete with anybody if we just take care of the game one pitch at a time. And so, yes, I'd say it was definitely a turning point for us last season.
Of course, one of the players that people took notice, obviously, is Autumn Moffett-Korth, won 22 games for you last season. She returns for you. Just discuss her, what makes her so good, and what's the ceiling for her? Because she was incredible during the season there and even in the postseason.
Well, she's a competitor. What makes her so good is she's a fighter. She wants the ball. She wants to be in the tough games. She doesn't shrink from the moment, and that's what makes her so special. And it's been kind of fun for me to watch her development over the years. She's really come into her own. And then in our exit interview last spring, when we were done playing, she said to us coaches, she said, "I'm going to get better. Here's what I'm going to work on. I'm going to work on A, B, C, D, and I'm going to come back even better for my senior year." And that means a lot to us, because champions are made when nobody's looking. And I think she'll come back and she'll be our leader from the circle, and one of our team leaders. Certainly she has strong leadership skills. I think she's going to have a very strong year, which is extremely important to us.
When I think of BYU great pitchers, the one that stands out to me, obviously, is like a Paige Affleck, who's obviously led your team in 2010 to the Supers. I know you've had others. Where can she be? Can she be in that conversation by the time her career is done? And how big is it for the staff to have her back with the rest of the arms to learn from her?
Well, there's no doubt she ranks right up there with the greats. Paige Affleck was very much like Autumn in her competitive nature. She was a fighter. She wanted the ball. She didn't want to be taken out. She didn't shrink from any big moments. So Autumn is a lot like her. And I would compare her and Autumn's approach to the game as being very similar. And I'd go to battle with either one of them on the mound at any time. So yes, Autumn already ranks with the greats at BYU and could certainly finish out a career that, may even elevate her beyond that if that's possible, because we've had some really good pitching. And then her leadership has really taken off over the last year and a half, where she is instrumental in not only helping our pitching staff not be a bunch of individuals, but more of a staff, and motivating them and helping them along. She's critical in that area. And then she's also a very strong team that helps our team grow in that area as well.
You obviously have Arissa Polson was your number 2. She won 12 games. She graduates now. Behind now, Autumn, what do you expect? That's going to be one of the keys in the fall there from your other arms. What's your expectation for them? Who's some of the names you think to keep an eye on and the rest of your staff?
Well, we have a 4-person pitching staff right now. We have a 5th, but Taryn Lennon's going to mainly concentrate on playing the outfield. Excuse me. So we have Carly Brown she'll be a sophomore athletically, a junior academically because of COVID. But Carly Brown had a brilliant travel ball career, leading the Brashear Firecrackers to a 2nd place and a 3rd place finish in the Premier PGF Nationals. And she's just got unlimited talent. And I think COVID kind of interrupted her learning curve in her freshman year, and then with a veteran pitching staff, she never really had a chance to grab hold last year. But I think we can expect big things from Carly Brown. Lauren Salcido will be a sophomore for us, left-handed arm from the Corona Angels Howard, who she just keeps people off balance. She is a spot and a movement pitcher from the left side. And then we picked up Chloe Temples from Stetson out of Florida. And Chloe, we have really high hopes for Chloe coming in and picking up right where Arissa left off, and maybe even pressing for more than that. I think Chloe is a great competitor from the left side, a left-handed arm. I think Chloe's going to do great things for us as well.
Of course, offensively, when people looked at your offense, Riley Jensen was one of the first names that would come to mind. What a career she had. What a year she just, what a way to go off. 392, 20 homers, and 43 RBIs. Just the lasting impact that she had on your program was what?
Well, she's irreplaceable. I mean, she's just one of those players that we always just reload, but you just can't replace Riley. All of the intangibles that she did in the game, as well as the tangibles, you just can't replace her. So we're going to miss Riley greatly.
Her coming back for that extra year, how much is that, though, going to help the returners? Having her around, learning from her even last year, that could pay off for some of the players returning for this year and moving forward?
Well, I think the signs of that are Violet Zavodnik, our center fielder, as a freshman last year, and Hannah Jo Peterson as a junior college transfer. Both of them really upped their games. And I think in large part it was because the synergy in the outfield led by Riley, and Violet ended up being, our conference player of the year and our freshman conference player of the year, which has never been done before. And then she was all region. I thought she deserved to be all American, but I don't get a vote on that. But I think Violet's, and now Violet's on our junior national team. I think Violet's game was always there, but in large part took off because of Riley Jensen. And I would say Hannah Jo Peterson, who hits in our 2-hole, will start for us again this year. I think the same thing on her game. Her game really took off last year, I think in large part because of Riley.
You mentioned Violet. What a year for her as a freshman. Can you compare the year she's had to like freshmen you've had before? I mean, to when you mentioned it, first player ever, freshman of the year, national conference player of the year, all region player. Wow. And now you mentioned she's on a junior national team. So she's obviously only going to get better, but it's kind of scary to even say that considering the year she had. 416, 14 homers, 48 RBIs.
Yeah, she's a special player for sure and a great team player. She puts the team before herself and just does a great job for her. To compare her to other freshmen in our program in the past, we've had some very good ones, but the immediate one that comes to mind is Riley Jensen. In Riley's freshman year, she had an incredible freshman year where we had Connie May of the Scrapyard Dogs coming up to me in Mexico and saying, when that kid graduates, we're going to draft her. And that was in her freshman year. So I would say Violet is in some pretty elite company, but Violet's game Violet is a first team All-American just waiting to happen. She's just an incredible player.
You don't replace a player like Riley Jensen. So how do you offset the production you lose in a player like Jensen? Is it a combination of multiple players? Is it certain players? Is it some new faces that you expect to contribute to help offset? How do you kind of go in, trying to get that production that you had from Riley?
Well, I don't know if we'll get that production out of any single player, but this game always surprises me. Someone always steps up that maybe was a little bit unexpected. Having said that, we will replace Riley's numbers not only with returning players, because we had great depth on our team. We had players not playing last year that could have started for most Division I teams in the country. And so they'll step in now and it'll be their turn to step up. And I believe they will. And then we added Macy Simmons, a transfer from Arizona State, who has an incredibly potent offensive bat that I believe will help with a lot of those offensive numbers. And then a healthy Hunter Ava. Hunter Ava is our first baseman and has been our first baseman. Every player on our team has to earn their spot every year. So Hunter will have to earn it again. But no one really knew she was hurt last year. She had some major knee problems to where every time she swung the bat, it would hurt. And so Hunter, even though she had a decent year, was very limited in what she could do. But she got surgery immediately after the season. We expect her back 100% in January. And Hunter Ava is a offensive monster. She's someone that will really put up numbers for us. And with a healthy Hunter Ava, I expect that we'll be more potent offensively than we were last year.
We're speaking with BYU head coach Gordon Eakin here on In the Circle. With the success you've had, all the consecutive conference championships, last year getting to a regional final, is that something you will bring up to your team here as you start practice? Or is that something like you don't want to bring up, that this is a new slate? How do you approach this team? Do you bring up what you've done last year and to motivate them? Or is it something you just don't even acknowledge?
Well, everyone in our program knows the tradition of our program. They know we win conference championships. They know we compete for regional championships. That's just an expectation, and I don't really have to bring it up. It's interesting to hear kind of the backroom noise about players not wanting to be the team that breaks the streak of conference championships or regional appearances or anything like that. So they're already aware of it. I'm a coach that believes we focus on one day at a time. If we can get better every day, it gives us a better chance to win another championship. And so we don't really plan or talk about down the road. In fact, when we goal plan, our goal plan is not about winning the College World Series. Our goal planning is about being selfless, resilient, and driven, which are our core values. And if we can be selfless every day and worry about the team more than ourselves and compete for the right reasons, we'll be better. If we can be resilient and learn to overcome that horrible fifth inning or a pandemic or whatever it is, we're going to be better, not only in softball, but in life. And then if we can be driven every day to excellence, the goals kind of take care of themselves. And so we're more about the process than we are about the outcome.
Let's talk about your career. What got you interested in coaching softball? How'd you get involved in coaching softball?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I never even thought about coaching, to tell you the truth. I was a baseball player, played in the Oakland A's organization, and then got released from the A's organization. And when I did, a guy by the name of Larry Miller, who he's gone now, but he owned the Utah Jazz. Yep. And had an extremely successful men's fast pitch softball team. And he called me and said, "Why don't you come play softball now that you're done with baseball?" And I said, "I'm a baseball player. I'm not interested." And Larry Miller was a very successful businessman, and he stayed after me. Very convincing man. I was a shortstop. He told me, "Well, if you come, you can pitch and bat fourth." And I don't know why I thought I could pitch, but I said, "Okay, I'll come and I'll pitch and bat fourth." Well, he didn't let me pitch. He did let me bat fourth, and I couldn't hit it. I mean, I probably struck out 30 times in a row. I'd hit a 280, 300-foot foul ball down the left field line as a right-handed hitter, and then the changeup would get me every time. So my competitive nature kind of got me going, and I loved the game. I learned to love the game. I ended up playing for Larry for 17 years and was on the USA men's national team, played in Pan American Games, just fell in love with the game. And then when I retired, I worked for Larry. He actually, to back up a little bit, he gave me a job so I could get off work to go play softball for him, which was great. But when I was done with my softball career, I was just working for Larry and got a call from BYU, and they said, "Hey, do you know any male coaches that would be interested in coaching?" And I said, "I don't." And they called me back a couple of weeks later and said, "Are you sure you wouldn't want to come down and talk to us?" And I must have been having a bad day or something at work, because I went down and talked to them, never thinking I wanted to coach softball or any other sport. And 2 weeks later, I was working at BYU for about a third of what I was making financially at Larry Miller. Don't know, my wife thought I was crazy, but looking back, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I haven't worked a day in my life since. Still had a lot of stress, but I just love the game. I love giving back to the game. I love the players that I get to interact with, the coaches I get to interact with. It's just been an incredible road.
Who did you seek out for advice once you got into coaching? Was there somebody you looked up to kind of pick their brain, maybe took some of their style and used it to your style? I mean, who did you seek out, if anybody?
Well, that's good, because I still do that to this day. I think in the early days, it was probably Kenny Eriksen from South Florida and our USA national team coach, probably him more than others, because Kenny played on our team with Larry Miller Toyota, and he was actually the catcher for Pete Meredith, who's our pitching coach. And so Kenny really helped me quite a bit. But then I developed, Michael White, we played against Michael White forever in the softball game. So Michael White has been very helpful over the years. There's Mike Candrea. I got a great relationship with Mike Candrea where I can text him and he gets back with me immediately and gives me knowledge every day. But I still do that. I think when you start thinking you know it all, you're in trouble. And I learn something new about this game every single day, and I'm a logic coach. It has to make logical sense to me. A lot of the new wave things that are going on in our sport, they make no logical sense to me. I'll give you one example, which may or may not be wise on my part, but launch angle. Launch angle is the rage in hitting in baseball and in softball. But for me, having played both baseball and softball, launch angle didn't make any sense to me in softball. Baseball, you're throwing from an elevated mound overhand. Softball, you're throwing from a flat mound underhand. And so it just has never, launch angle has never made sense to me. And so because I need to know if there's something to launch angle, I reached out to a lot of the great coaches, and a lot of those great coaches, when I said, do you teach launch angle? They would say, heck no, I don't do it. And then we'd have a long discussion about it. And I would understand that, okay, I'm thinking right. My logic makes sense. I have had opportunities in the past where I've reached out in those cases and I've had to rethink things to maybe improve my knowledge or my coaching style. But I do that every day and try to get better every day through logical thinking and the experience that I had in playing the game.
That's incredible. Because launch angles become like a big topic in cross baseball, especially, and even somewhat in softball. So I think that's a good point. TJ, you mentioned Ken Eriksen. I know Coach Eriksen, obviously reside in Florida. I've covered him for all the years at South Florida. What was he like as a player and as you got to know him, and eventually he would go into coaching as well? Because he's a bit of a character.
You said it right there. He's a character, and I won't readily share all of his character traits, but he's a character, but a great man. What an incredible man, and great for the game. Another guy that you can call, and he'll take his time for you. I really respect Kenny, but we'll just leave it at the fact that yes, he was a character.
And a heck of a player.
Still is a character.
But he was a heck of a player. Like, I don't know if people realize that now. Like, he was a great player at South Florida. He was a baseball player and a great fast pitch player. Not a lot of people can do both like he did. And you did, obviously.
Yeah, he was an incredible player. He was a catcher and first baseman when he wasn't catching. And I'll just tell you how good you have to be to catch some of the men's major pitchers. I was a shortstop, and I was pretty good. And Pete Meredith joined our team, and we were playing at the Cottonwood Complex in Salt Lake City one night in the first week or two that he had joined our team, and it was a night game, 9:00 at night. Lights were decent, but our catcher didn't show up. I can't remember what happened to him, but our catcher wasn't there. And the coach said, hey, can anybody catch? And we all kind of looked at each other like, there's no catchers here. But we needed a catcher. So finally, a young and arrogant Gordon Eakin stepped up and said, yeah, I'll do it. How hard could it be? I'll catch him. Well, Pete Meredith would throw from 46 feet, which is the men's distance, and he jumped halfway out of the circle. He was in the mid 80s at that point in his career. It's a myth that pitchers could throw 100. There were no men's pitchers that threw 100 miles an hour. Mid to upper 80s was as fast as it got. But 80 miles an hour from 46 feet is really cooking. And then the ball moves. Pete struck out the first three hitters, and they had bases loaded because I didn't lay leather on any one of his pitches. They were going off the umpire and off the backstop and strike three, and I'd miss the pitch. They'd be on first base. So Pete struck out the first three hitters, and they had bases loaded because I couldn't catch him. And the next hitter, he threw a drop ball, went off the top of my foot. And I stood up and threw my glove down and said, someone else is going to have to do this because I can't do it. And so that's just a lead up to say Ken Eriksen went back there with a guy throwing mid to upper 80s with great movement and handled him like he was in a rocking chair. Absolutely no problem. And to me, that is all of those catchers in the men's and the women's games that can do that. I really respect, because that is certainly a talent that doesn't just come by being a good player or a good athlete. There's some talent there.
No doubt. And it's been a remarkable career he's had from a player standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, both in the international game and the college game. You had a chance to coach in the international game, right? You coached the U.S. You were the hitting coach for the U.S. team, I believe, in 2009, 2010. Describe that experience being a part of Team USA there as a coach for those couple years.
It was awesome to get to interact with the players that I got to interact with on the stages that I got to interact with them. For instance, we went to the U.S. We went to Venezuela. That was probably the most interesting trip, was Venezuela, where Hugo Chavez was still in charge there, and his daughter played softball. So he was very interested in softball, but we would have armed guards around our bus on motorcycles that shut down the freeway for us. That the stadium was kind of down in a bowl. So you'd go down the road to get into the stadium, and there were armed guards, military there. And on our team was, Jenny Finch, Kat Osterman, Natasha Watley, Monica Abbott, you name them, Jessica Mendoza. Those were the kids that I got to be a part of coaching. And I'm not so sure I coached them as much as they coached me, but anytime they wanted me to say, hey, what do you think I'm doing? I'd give them that input. But just a great experience. Played in the Canada Cup, we played in Oklahoma City in the World Cup. It was really a great experience for me. And after 2 years, I withdrew my name because it was really taxing time-wise. And I felt like I was not paying the right amount of attention to BYU and my family. So I couldn't keep doing it. But the 2.5 years that I spent were incredible.
How did that experience make you a better coach moving forward?
Well, it gave me a chance to see the women's game at the highest level, not only the highest to rub shoulders every day with the best players in the USA, but then international competition and see how they did it. One little thing I never thought I would coach was footwork at second base on the double play, until I saw the way Japan did it. And Japan takes their throwing side foot and plants it on the bag, and then they don't even step, they just step into the throw, where most people have their glove side foot on the bag and then step across or back and throw. Takes just a little bit longer, but Japan is so skilled in the infield that I just kind of studied that. And now I teach our infielders both methods. And the Japan method of turning a double play requires that the shortstop or third baseman delivering the throw, they don't miss with the throw. But we work on both now because it's just a quicker way to do that. And we want our double play numbers to be 40 or 50 double plays a year. And we're getting close to that as we get more and more skilled middle infielders and work with them more and more on technique. So I think being part of that national team experience, and Mike Candrea was the head coach when I first started out, and watching Mike and the way he coached and the way he did two batter infield and just all of that stuff was things that I still use to this day that are invaluable.
It's remarkable. You became the head coach in 2003. You were an assistant on the staff at BYU prior to that. Just take me through that process, joining the BYU staff, and then the day you found out that you're going to be the head coach.
Well, going back to my first comment was I never thought about being a coach. And then all of a sudden I was an assistant coach there and enjoyed it. And we had a little bit of success, but I think the thing that I liked the most was the effort that these women put into the game. I mean, in the men's game, you want a shortstop to dive during practice in the men's game, forget it. We're not doing it. We'll dive in a game, but we won't do it in practice. These girls are begging us to hit them balls that they can dive for in practice because they want to work on the skill. And just kind of being around that kind of work ethic and that commitment and seeing their commitment to the game and how talented they were just made it so that when it was time, I put my name in for the head coach job. And when I got it, I was surprised, but I just thought, wow, this is something that I could love doing for a long, long time. And that was 22 years ago, and I'm still here.
And have built a program that, honestly, on Selection Sunday night, we're accustomed to seeing BYU in some bracket. Just tell me about how you were able to build this success and the consistency over different conferences. I don't know if people realize that. You've obviously won in the West Coast Conference. Before that, the Mountain West Conference, you have won like 5 straight titles, other leagues as well. You've been consistent throughout. How do you build that consistency in a program?
Yeah, I'm possibly the only coach ever that's won 4 conference titles in 4 different conferences in 4 years. I mean, we were in 4 different conferences, bam, 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 in 4 years. We won the conference championship in all 4. And I'd say how we got to that is just hard work and great recruiting. I mean, I pride myself in recruiting and trying to get the players that are not only talented, but have heart and are team type players. But so the credit really goes to the players that we've recruited. And then our commitment to hard work, to going out there every day and trying to get better. And then I think along the way, as we got better and better, our commitment to play the toughest schedule we could possibly play, so that when we got to a regional, or when we get in that tough game in conference play that makes a difference, it doesn't really matter who we're playing. We can play the game. And so we've had our conferences, everybody just thinks we're going to win our conference every year, but I can go back and tell you how many conferences we've won, because we've won a game by 1 run in the conference, and that's made all the difference. And so it's very competitive. And every year we have to really work hard and fight hard and be resilient and not shrink from the moment. And so I think playing a tough schedule has really helped with that and helped get our program where it is today.
Obviously, the year that everybody remembers in Provo will be in 2010. You go to Austin Regional. You play Tony Paisley, who was a phenomenal pitcher at ECU at East Carolina, had won 3 straight Conference USA Pitchers of the Year. She's coming in. You got Texas and their tradition. Blair Luna was young at that time, but they had a loaded team. And you walk in there, you win a pitcher's duel there. Affleck outduels Paisley there. You beat Texas in a wild game. You end up winning the region over East Carolina. Just take me through that period of time there. You find out you're going to Austin, you prepare, and you pull off that regional. Just take me through all that sequence there.
I think that was probably 2008, 2009, 2010. We had really good players, which makes a difference. But I think that's really where we kind of started changing our schedule to play the tougher teams through the year and to gain that experience at that higher level. And so when we watched the selection show and we found out we were going to Texas, who was ranked 7th at the time, and we knew of their team, we thought, okay, we can go in there and we can win that regional. What we didn't know was we didn't really know about Paisley. We didn't know how good she was. And when we faced her, she might have been the best pitcher we had faced all year long with any competition that we played. Kid could move the ball and hit her spots, and she was tough. But that first game was a real pitcher's duel, and that just winning that game, I think, gave us the confidence to go out the next day and compete hard against Texas in what you said was a wild game. And I'll never forget how we won that. We had a runner on third base, and a deep foul ball hit down left field line. And in my mind, at less than 2 outs, my mind, the kid's not going to catch it. But just in case, we tag up and she catches the ball. And at that point, the game was over because we tagged up and we scored and won the game. If that kid lets that ball drop, maybe it's a whole different outcome.
Right?
And so, I mean, we use lessons like that every day in our program, and we're never going to catch that ball when he runs on third base and the ball, and we can't throw him out for sure. We're not going to catch that ball. So we take those experiences and learn from them as a coach and as players. And then we faced East Carolina again in the championship game, and we beat them pretty handily in that last game. I can't remember the score, 7-2, 7-3, something like that. But by the time we got to that game and had seen Paisley once, we were pretty confident, and Paige Affleck was throwing lights out. So, and then we got to go, our reward was we got to go to Arizona to play in the Super Regional. But by the way, we only lost the opening night 2-1 in a very tight game. At least that's what my memory was. And my memory is a ball in the sun gave them their second run with our left fielder. I mean, it was a hard fought game in that first game. If that first game had changed a little bit, who knows what would have happened. But Arizona was very good at that time.
Yeah, that was led by Kinsey Fowler and company, and they would go on to the Women's College World Series, and that would be the last time that Mike Condrey and Arizona would be in the World Series for a while, up until a couple years ago when they got back. I mean, you ran into an Arizona team that almost won the national title. If it wasn't for that, who knows? You would have had a different route in the Super Regionals.
Yeah, well, I think the route in the Super Regionals helped us have that confidence to have such a tight game at Arizona in the first game. I mean, you don't go into U of A very often with his quality teams and come out of there a winner, but we had a chance, which is what you ask for. And I was very proud of that team and the way we competed. And it just I think that was a big stepping stone for us over the last 10 years in what we're capable of doing on the bigger stage.
Let's talk about the league you're in, the West Coast Conference. And you mentioned it. People just kind of look at it from afar. Oh, you've won all these consecutive titles, not realizing the thin margin for error in a league like yours, which is a 16 field. It's not a mega conference where you don't play everybody. You play everybody. And one bad weekend could be the difference between you winning the league and not winning the league. I remember a couple of years ago, you were in danger of not winning the league with Loyola Marymount. It came down to a matchup against them. You won that series and you won the league. Just talk about that approach in this league that people don't realize. It's much better than people think, but the room for error is very thin because really one bad weekend and you're probably out of a conference title race.
Yeah, for sure. And there was a year, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, where we started the year off with Loyola at BYU, and they came in and beat us the first 2 games of a 3-game series. And we won the 3rd game, but now we've lost a home series, and we're in the whole 1 game in a short season anyway, with just 15 conference games, to a very good Loyola team. What Loyola didn't expect is that we would not get beat the rest of the year. I mean, we came out and we just went on a run and didn't get beat again. And had we slipped up again once or twice, Loyola would have won that year too. And that's just kind of the way it is in our conference. Every team is capable of beating you. A couple of years ago, Pacific had a big win against, I can't remember who it was, LSU or somebody, or played right with them. Loyola beat Michigan and LSU at the Judy Garman day after day down there. Our teams can play. And now San Diego has a great coaching staff, and with the Knighton sisters, and they've got some good pitching. I think they're going to be tougher and tougher. So our conferences, I respect our conference. It's come down a few years to 1 game to where we've had to just play our best to win a conference championship.
And you've got and people don't realize that unless you're in the league. You and Loyola have had a great rivalry there. Coach Sammy Ward was an alum, coached them, really build them up to challenge you. She always said that you were the team to kind of to go reach. And then obviously Coach Flowers has taken over there as well. Of course, Coach Cozy's now entering, I think, his 30th season at Pacific. What is that like? That you are the target. I mean, everybody's gunning for you. Is that something that you bring up to the players? Is that something you just expect? How do you handle that? That once you get into conference play, you have to tell your players everybody's going to bring their best game against you.
We do bring that up. That's one way we do look forward, is to say that everyone is out for us in our conference, and we feel that every time we play. There's no doubt, there's no day off. And so we do bring that up. We guard from complacency, because you can listen to the different people around the country and you can get complacent, but we know better. And so we do guard against that, especially with our new players that haven't been through that grind before, to know that, hey, it's going to be a battle, and you need to be ready, because they're going to be out for us, and they want to beat us. They want to knock us off, and we're not going to let down one bit, and allow that to happen. When that finally does happen, hopefully I'll be gone by then. But if that happens, or when that happens, I should say, we'll tip our hat to whoever wins that, knowing that we didn't let our foot off the gas one little bit. But our conference is getting better and better. It's got great coaches in it. They're getting better and better players. The transfer portal has really kind of started to shape teams like the West Coast Conference teams. And so I expect it'll still be a battle, and everybody will still be out for us.
Does the conference weekend feel like postseason? Does it help you get prepared for the postseason in a way? Because as I mentioned, you can't take a weekend off. You lose a series, that could be it. You could be out completely. Does it feel like a postseason every weekend because of what's at stake, because there's not that big room for error? And does it really get you prepared for when you get to the regionals?
I think it does, because every pitch matters. And like I say, our conference is really starting to play great ball. And last year, Loyola's pitcher, she was a transfer, and she could flat pitch. I mean, she had a great rise ball, and we struggled with her. We won 2 out of 3 at Loyola, but they were close games until the last game. And those things do battle test you and get you ready for conference play. And then I think it also teaches us, because, we played ASU, we played Baylor, we played U of A, we played Washington, all those teams through the year. And then you go in and you play a tough game against St. Mary's. And what it teaches you is it doesn't matter who you're playing. Anybody can come out on top in this game. And so when you go to a regional and your first draw is a team that you don't think is very good and you should beat them, that's where a lot of teams slip up, quite honestly, is when you go into a regional and you're grateful you don't have to play Oklahoma in the first game. You're just playing ABC University in the first game, and then ABC University knocks you off. And so you have to learn to play every pitch one game at a time. And I think our experience of our schedule and our conference play teaches us to do that.
Couple last questions. Talk about the athletic department at BYU. You look at the football program, the great tradition they've had. They're coming off an incredible year with Zach Wilson, who's now in the NFL, and they've produced great talent over the years and been successful at football. But they have other success as well. Men's basketball has had success. Your program has had success. So talk about the overall department at BYU and why it is so successful, despite the fact, for example, football is an independent. The other sports are on the West Coast Conference, but you all make it work.
Yeah, we have a tremendous athletic department. We placed 17th in the Directors Cup this year, which is a reflection of what all sports do. And you have to go to an NCAA tournament to score points in the Directors Cup. But in the top 20 in the Directors Cup is kind of a benchmark of your overall athletic department. And we're very good. BYU supports us incredibly. We have all the resources we need. We have support from our athletic director knows every one of our girls. Will come and sit in our dugout during a game. He just, not to babysit or anything, but just because he's a big part of it, just because he supports it so much. So the facilities at BYU are incredible. Our stadium is second to none. It's a phenomenal stadium. We have BYU TV, which means all of our games are on TV, either live or streamed on TV with professional staffs filming them. I mean, we're just very fortunate at BYU. And the result of that and the tradition at BYU is that we have a very strong athletic department, and we feel that every day in the softball program.
Last couple questions. Now, as you get set for fall practice and you get to kind of know your team, what are some of the keys for your team here between now and February to accomplish your goals? And what are the things you'll be looking for as you start practice and start preparation? And as before you know it, February will be here.
Yeah, I think we'll start the fall kind of getting to know our new players and how they fit in and how the veterans come back from a summertime. But more than that, it'll be about working on team culture and team chemistry because I'm confident that our team will be there talent-wise, that we'll compete, that we'll play hard. It's just if your culture and your chemistry has holes in it, that's where you really feel it as the season goes by. That's where you really feel that, you know, there's players that are undermining the thing. You know, they're under your lifeboat poking holes in it. And you can't have any holes in your lifeboat if you want to stay afloat. And so we'll work really hard on culture and chemistry during the fall to make sure that when we go out there and go to battle, that we are in this together, that we're taking care of the person on our left and on our right, and that we're selfless, we're resilient, we're driven, and then things tend to become magical at that point if you're able to accomplish that.
Well, Coach, we look forward to seeing your team. You're always fun to watch when we get a chance to see you. Congrats so far on the success you've had and certainly all the great things you've done for the program and for the sport of softball. And we look forward to seeing what your team can do moving forward. We wish you well, and we hope to do this again down the road. Thanks for taking the time.
Okay, thanks for having me.